Thanks for stopping by, everyone. I'm inside of Mike's Motors because I'm trying to get myself a good car. Now, in order to determine what the best car is that Mike has to offer here, let's just look at the finer details of this one. This car's made looks to be out of cobblestone, which I thought cars were made out of metal, not cobblestone, so this is a little strange, and it looks kind of ugly in my opinion. But this one, oh my god, this looks so good. I might actually get this car. It looks very nice. It looks very nice. All right, Mike, I think I've come to a decision. I want to buy this red car right here. I have some Robux for you. Hopefully this is going to be enough to cover for the car. So I'm just going to drop this and... Okay, well, it's kind of on the ground, but I mean, it's yours now. And I'm guessing these are the keys to the car, so I'm just going to swipe these. All right, looks very nice, looks very nice. All right, I'm about to give this car a spin, and I'm gonna whip out my controller so I can really feel the rumble. All right, let's go in. Oh yeah. Wait, what happened to my hat? Where did it go? That's a little whack, bro. All right, let's just drive on out of here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This car is so nice. This car is so nice. I feel the rumble too. Like I feel the rumble of my controller too. It feels really good. It feels really good. But oh wait, this car feels a little unstable though. It's like if I try to move for a long period of time, it just kind of like rattles in here. Maybe I should be concerned about this. I have no idea. Okay, wait, this car does not feel right. This car does not feel right in the slightest. I feel like something's about to break. Wait, what? Wait, my car just exploded. Bro, I got scammed, bro. What? All right, let's think about this for a minute. This video is going to be about Haptic service, which is a service that allows us to add rumbling and vibrations to our controllers and to our mobile devices whenever we're playing a Roblox game. So right now, I have my controller connected to this game, so I'm able to play this game with my controller. And while my controller is connected, I can get haptic feedback responses for whatever I decide to add with those things inside of the game. So some examples that I've made involve jumping, and then it provides a haptic feedback on my controller that basically rumbles whenever I jump and whenever I land on the ground. But I also have this shift to sprint system where I hold right trigger, and then it makes my character move really fast, but also my controller that's being connected is constantly vibrating. I don't think you can hear this, but yeah, my controller is vibrating constantly until I let go. And then it basically just returns just like that. So this is what I'm going to be teaching you how to add inside of your Roblox game, and I hope that you find this tutorial to be helpful. And with that being said, let's go ahead and go straight into the episode. Now that we understand it, let's implement Haptic service inside Roblox Studio. But before we begin, I want to mention that due to the nature of this tutorial being about controller vibrations, ideally I would want you to have a physical controller connected to your PC so that we can truly test the vibrations of our controllers once we implement them inside of our game. But if you don't have a physical controller, then there is an alternative, and that is through controller emulation. And the whole idea behind controller emulation is that we're mapping out controls of a controller onto our keyboard so that we can emulate what it would be like to play on a controller. And as of recording this video, this is a beta feature, but if let's say you were watching this like a year from now, then this is probably out of beta and you can use this feature normally. But if you are watching this, if it's a beta feature, then I'm going to show you how to enable it. So what we're going to do is go to File, and then we're going to click on Beta Features. So if we scroll down just a little bit, we should find something called Gamepad Emulator. So we want to select this, and we want to hit Save. So it's going to ask us to restart Studio, in which we are going to hit Restart, and then we're just going to wait for this to load back up. All right, so now that we've loaded in, if we go to the Test tab, then there should be a new button here under Emulation called Controllers. So what we're going to do is click on this, and it's going to show a window down here that shows the mapping of what keys we have to press to emulate these specific buttons that are laid out on this controller. And we can test this out if we hit play. We can basically play the game as if we were playing on a controller, but instead we're just using our keyboard. So if we want to use W, A, S, and D, this is going to mimic what the left joystick is going to be like. And if we want to mimic the buttons over here, then we can just use the numbers 7, 8, 9, and 0, just like so. And this is a really effective emulator if we want to test the game using a controller if we don't have a physical controller. So I think this would be really helpful for you to use. And with that being said, let's now go and continue with this tutorial. Okay, now let's start scripting Haptic service. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to do this on the local side. So we're going to insert a local script, probably inside of, let's say, starter character scripts. So let's hit the plus sign, and we're going to insert a local script, and we're going to delete the code that's over here. And we're first going to make reference to Haptic service by saying local Haptic service equals game:get service Haptic service, just like this. Now, before we can start utilizing the vibration capabilities of our controller, we first have to check if the device that we plugged in can be vibrated, and if the motor that we're trying to change is also supported with this device as well. I'm going to show you both of these things. So first, what we have to do is check if it's vibration supported. So we're going to say if Haptic service is vibration supported, open and close parentheses, and this takes in an enum value of a user input type, and I'm going to show you what input type we're going to use here. So we're going to say enum.userinputType dot, and because we're testing out a controller, we're going to say gamepad 1. So we're going to hit enter, and then we're going to, and if this is vibration supported, then we're just going to make a print statement saying that this device supports vibration, just so that we know that this is working. So what we're going to do is go to the game, we're going to hit test, we're going to enable our controller emulator, and we're going to hit play. So then what we should see in the output is this device supports vibration, which is what we expected. So the next thing we need to do is that if we can change specific parts of this controller to be able to vibrate. So what we're going to do down here is say if Haptic service is motor supported, open and close parentheses. First thing we're going to do is add the input type, which is the same thing we did before. So we're going to say enum.userinputType.gamepad1. Now for the second argument, this is what's called a vibration motor. Now to basically explain these motors, let's go back to the game, and I'm going to pull up the controller emulator again. So based on the way this controller looks, there's multiple motors which are basically points inside of the controller that is allowed to be vibrated. So there can be a certain section that basically makes up a majority of the controller called large, and we can make that motor vibrate. Or if we want to make a specific part of the controller, like let's say this right trigger area, to vibrate, then we can do that as well. There are specific parts of this controller that we can vibrate, and these are essentially our motor points. So that's essentially what we're trying to change here, and this is the function we're going to use to detect if this motor is supported with the controller that we have plugged in. So what we're going to do is say enum.vibrationMotor, and the most common ones are usually large and small. So in this case, we're going to test out large, and then we're going to say then, just like so. And so this is going to check if it supports this motor. So we're going to print saying large motor is supported, just like this. We're gonna go and enable the controller again, and then we're gonna hit play. So then what we should see in the output is that this is also supported with a large motor, so that this is the motor we're going to vibrate through our controller. And so I hope so far this is making sense to you. So now that we know that this vibration motor is supported, we can now create controller vibrations using this function that I'm going to show you right now. So we're going to drop 2 lines here, and what we're going to do is say Haptic service SetMotor, open and close parentheses, just like this. And what we're going to do is pass in the user input type. So this is going to be enum.userinputType.gamepad1, and then we're going to say enum.vibrationMotor.large. And finally, this takes in one more parameter, which is going to be the value of the vibration that we want to set. So it's a value between 0 and 1. So 0 meaning that the vibration is off, and then 1 meaning that the vibration is turned on at its max. But we can also set values in between 0 and 1 as well. So in this case, what I'm going to do is set this to 1. And basically what this does is it's going to switch the motor from 0 to 1, but it's constantly going to do this until we turn it off. And so what we're going to do down here is put a task.wait statement for about, let's say, 2 seconds. And then we're basically just going to copy this line and we're going to paste it down here. And we're just going to set this back to 0. So now what should happen is I'm also going to write some print statements here saying start motor. And then we're going to write another print statement here saying stop motor, just so that we can see that it's working inside of the script. So if we go into the game, enable our controller, and then hit play, then what we should see in the output is we're starting the motor, and then after 2 seconds, it stops the motor. Now, you can't really see this inside of the game if you don't have a physical controller, but I have a physical controller connected inside of the game, and so I was able to feel the vibration coming out of my physical controller. But you can trust me on this, it is working. Now, I do want to add a bit of a side note to this and say that device vibration also works on mobile devices, but we're not going to be using the gamepad, but instead we're going to be using a different user input type. So I'm going to show you what this looks like down here really quick. First thing we have to do is check if it's vibration supported. So we're going to say if haptic service : is vibration supported. And what we're going to say here for the user input type is say touch, just like this. Touch is basically any device that is like a phone or a tablet that has a touch capability to them. So if this is true, and what we're going to do here is basically say haptic service : SetMotor, and then we're going to say enum.user input type .touch, and we can use the same motor we did up here with large. We can say enum.vibrationMotor.large, and then we can set this to 1. And so if you were to test this on a touch device like a phone or a tablet, then this should make the device vibrate as well. And this is not restricted to just controllers, but that's primarily what we're going to be doing for this tutorial. So this is like a little thing I wanted to add on to here in case you wanted to do this for your touch devices as well. Now, it would be problematic to set off a bunch of motors and then turn them off later. So it's like if I were to have large and small be turned on and then large and small be turned off, then we would have to manually turn on and turn off these different motors, which is why it would be better if we had our own controller module script to help us regulate these motors that we set off. And whenever we don't need to have these motors on anymore, then we can just have a simple function to just turn them off. And in my opinion, this would be a more efficient way to handle our controller motors rather than just turning them on and off manually. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the game and we're going to insert a module script inside of replicated storage, just like this. And we're going to call this HapticController, just like this. And we're also going to name the module HapticController, just like this. And the first thing we're going to do is go to our local script, copy our reference of the haptic service, and we're going to do that up here. Now, there's going to be 3 functions that we're going to add to this haptic controller. The first thing is to check if this is motor supported, and then 2 more functions are going to be related to starting the motor and then stopping the motor. So we're going to say function HapticController dot is motor supported, open and close parentheses, and we're going to pass in 2 arguments here. So the first thing is going to be the input type, and then the vibration motor, just like this, and we're going to hit enter. And then what we're going to do is return haptic service : is motor supported, and we're just going to pass in the input type and the vibration motor, just like this. And now we're going to add 2 more functions. We're going to say function HapticController dot start, open and close parentheses, enter, and then we're going to have 1 more for stop, just like this. Now, what we're going to pass into both of these functions are the input type and the vibration motor, just like this. So we're going to copy this and paste it down here. Now, for the stop function, this should be pretty easy. It's just 1 line. And basically what we're going to do is just say haptic service : SetMotor, open and close parentheses. We're going to pass in the input type and we're going to pass in the vibration motor. And we're just simply going to set this to 0 because that's essentially what we're doing when we're stopping a motor from vibrating. We're just setting the value of it to 0. And the same principle can basically be said about our start function as well, except instead of a constant value of 0, we're going to set this to an intensity variable that we're going to set this to an intensity parameter, which is what we're going to add for our 3rd parameter here. We're just going to say intensity. And then finally, we're going to add in 1 more parameter, which is going to be the duration of this vibration. So we're going to replace this 0 with the intensity. And now The final thing we need to do for the start function is to give a duration as to how long we want this vibration to be set for. So the way we're going to structure it is like this. We're going to drop 2 lines and we're going to put in a task.delay for however long the duration is, and then we're going to create a new function for this task.delay function here. And so basically what we're going to do is simply just say HapticController.stop, open and close parentheses, and we're going to pass in the input type and the vibration motor simply just like this. Now the reason we're using task.delay is because we can have multiple motors be set off at the same time, so we don't want the function to wait for a single motor to finish first before activating another one, which is why we're going to use a task.delay, because that allows us to activate multiple motors if we wanted to be able to do that. So this is our basic function here, but if let's say we wanted to have an indefinite duration, meaning that if we want to start this vibration, but then we don't want it to stop until we specifically say that we want to stop this vibration, then we can do that using a value. Now, what is this value? Well, we can basically set it to be whatever value we want as long as it's not 0 or anything greater than 0. So let's make the value -1 in this case. So what we're going to do is say if duration is not equal to -1, then we're just going to take everything we have here and paste inside of here. Because if the value is -1, then we don't want to have a duration. But if it's anything that's not -1, then we're going to add in a task.delay duration to this, and then we're going to stop the controller. I hope that this has made sense to you. If it hasn't, then you can rewatch this part so that you can understand some of the parts that you weren't able to understand the first time. But generally, this is how our haptic controller function works. And now let's implement this. Okay, so inside of our local script, we're first going to make reference to our haptic controller module by saying local haptic controller equals require game.replicated storage : wait for child haptic controller, just like this. We're also going to drop some lines down here at the bottom, and what we're going to do is say if haptic controller dot is motor supported, and what we're going to throw in here is an enum user input type of gamepad 1, and then a vibration motor of, let's say, small in this case. Then we're going to make the small vibration motor activate by saying haptic controller dot start, open and close parentheses, and we're going to pass in the 4 arguments by saying enum dot user input type dot gamepad 1, and then enum dot vibration motor dot small, and then we're going to add an intensity from 0 to 1. So let's say 0.5 in this case. And then for the duration, well, we can set a duration to however many seconds we want, let's say 2 seconds, and this is automatically going to stop after 2 seconds. But let's say we wanted to have an indefinite time for this function. We're just going to say -1, and so we would have to manually stop this ourselves. So what we're going to do is, let's say we have a task.wait here for about 2 seconds, and then we're going to say haptic controller dot stop, open and close parentheses, and we're going to pass in the user input type. We can just copy this and paste it here. And then for the vibration motor, we could just copy this and paste it inside of here. And that basically stops it. So this is the equivalence of this right here. So if we start it, it's going to go for 2 seconds, and then it's going to automatically stop within just 1 line. But we can essentially do the same thing just by having an indefinite period of time. And so we're going to manually stop this vibration motor after 2 seconds have passed inside of our local script. And I hope that this has made sense to you. So for today's challenge, I want you to create this shift to sprint system using the controller's right trigger to activate it. Now, one thing that I want you to do with this challenge is use the haptic controller module scripts that we created to add vibrations to our controller device when we are sprinting. So as you can see in the output, there is a start vibration print statement, and then there's an end vibration print statement. So once we hold down right trigger, it's going to make our character sprint, but it's also going to start the vibration of our controller. And it doesn't matter which vibration motor you use, as long as you can see that the vibration is working. You can use large, you can use small, it doesn't really matter too much, but as long as you're holding down right trigger, then it's going to start the vibration, and it's not going to stop until you let go of the vibration. So that's essentially my challenge for you for this episode. go ahead and give it a try. And once you think you have something going, then we're going to come back and script this ourselves. So I will see you in just a little bit. Okay, so let's go back to our local script and we're going to comment out a couple of things. So we're going to comment out everything that's up here. And we're also going to comment out everything that is inside of here as well. So all we have are the two references for haptic service and haptic controller. And we now need to make reference to more things in order for us to make this challenge work. And the first thing we need to do is make reference to user input service. So up here, we're going to say local user input service equals game:get service user input service. And we're also going to need to make reference to our character by saying local character equals script.parent, because this is located inside of starter character scripts. And we're going to locate the humanoid as well by saying local humanoid equals character, wait for child, humanoid, just like this. So now we have all of our references that we need. So now we're going to use two functions from user input service. We're going to use input began and input ended. So we're going to say user input service dot input began connect function, open and close parentheses. This takes in an input parameter, and then we're going to hit enter. And then we're basically going to do the same thing, copy and paste it down here, but instead say input ended, just like this. So we first need to check if the input type is a gamepad. So what we're going to do is say if input.user input type equals enum.user input type.gamepad1, just like this, then we're going to check if the key code of the input matches the right trigger of our controller. So what we're going to do is say if input.keycode equals enum.keycode button R2. So R2 is basically the right trigger of our controller. And so that's basically how we represent it as a key code. It's called button R2. So inside of here, we're going to use one of the motors of our controller to make it vibrate using HapticController. But we need to do one more check, and that is to check if it's motor supported. So what we're going to do is say if HapticController.isMotor supported, we're going to throw in the input type of gamepad 1, and we're also going to put the vibration motor of, let's say, small in this case. So once we have all these checks, we can finally start vibrating the controller. So what we're going to do is say HapticController.start, and then we're just going to throw in our user input type and our vibration motor as the first two parameters. And then we're going to set the intensity of this to, let's say, 1, and then we're going to set the duration to -1. Because what we want to do is hold down the controller for as long as possible and then let go to then stop the vibration. So that's why this is going to run an indefinite period of time. So once we do this, then another thing we have to do is set the speed of our character's humanoid to be something larger. So what we're going to do is say humanoid.walk speed equals, let's say 48, because 16 is the default. And then we're going to make a print statement here saying that we have started the vibration of our controller. So now that we have this taken care of, we can basically copy the same thing and paste it down here for our input ended. So we're first going to check if we have a gamepad as our input type, and we're going to check if this was the button R2 key code that we're using as input. And then we check if it's motor supported. Then we're going to replace this with stop instead of start. And we don't need the third and fourth parameter here if we're using the stop function. And we're also going to change the walk speed back to 16, and we're going to print stop vibration. And this is essentially how we use our HapticController module scripts that we created for an example such as this. So now, if we go into the game, enable our controller emulator and hit play, then what we should see is we can run around just like normal, but then once we hit right trigger, so if we hold P, then it's going to start the vibration of our controller, and it's also going to make our character move really fast. But then once we let go, then it's going to stop the vibration, and it's going to make our character walk in normal speed. And once again, you can have my word on this, but my physical controller is vibrating when I do press right trigger. So this is basically how haptic service works, and I hope that you found this video to be extremely informative. So that's pretty much going to be it for this episode on haptic service. If you found this video to be extremely informative, then I encourage you to leave a like on this video and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It would mean so much to me. And I would also like to give a shout out to all of my Patreon members for supporting the work that I do. Their contribution definitely motivates me to continue doing the work that I put out for this channel for you guys to watch. So I'm very grateful for that. Please check out all of my other content that I have on this channel relating to other advanced scripting topics that you might find interesting. I will leave a link to Context Action Service, which is basically creating mobile buttons for your game. If you're interested in adding mobile support for your Roblox game, which I'm going to leave the link for you right here to watch. So go ahead and watch that if you haven't already. With that being said, I will see you in the next episode. Take care.